guys, thank you so much for tuning in to watch my video. You guys are awesome. I'm so honored and grateful for those that watch and share and subscribe and like. I'm just really grateful for you. As you're well aware, we've been in a global pandemic for the past couple of months. It's been rough. Of course, Malawi has blue ticks the virus. But for those that have been able to, just where it's been possible, because some people have not been able to say, I work from home, or I won't be able to do this and I won't be able to do that because they need to do that. But for those that have, our lives have changed so much. The way we worship, the way we bank, the way we do anything and everything. We're rethinking our choices of, do we go out to eat? We're not seeing certain family members, literally our whole lives have changed. And it's been hard, even from small things like, as a hugger like me, you can't hug people and you just have to be physically distant. It's been really hard. But I believe it's for a season. And even in this season, as Christians, we can find ways of making sure that our Christian witness thrives and that we are able to honor God and worship Him and do what He calls us to do, which is love others, love Him, and serve Him. So this video is basically about some of the ways that we can do that. And I would love to hear from you guys. Comment, engage some of the ways that you think we can totally worship God and witness our faith and love the next person well, even in a pandemic. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 1, and then there's verse 13. It essentially says we have been freed from our fleshly desires, we've been freed from our sin, our turn of inwardness. We've been freed so that we can serve and humbly love one another. Our freedom in Christ is not just for us to be self-centered anymore. There's no me. It's about God and loving His people well. And I believe that there's ways of us doing that even in a global pandemic. The first way is just, observing 1 Thessalonians 5:17 that calls us to pray continually, pray without ceasing. And I believe that we can lift other people up in prayer. And our neighbors vary. If they look like our brothers and sisters, our parents, your husband, your wife, your children, your next door neighbor, whoever God has put you in community with, your colleague, you can lift them up in prayer. You can be intentional about asking them, how can I be praying for you? We can schedule calls, you can text people. And it's not even about, they didn't text me first, so I'm not going to text them first. God calls us to humility and to love, and loving others does not look like love of this world. It looks like the Bible, where it's sacrificial, so you sacrifice even your pride of not being the first one to, the first one to be texted, but being the first one to text or the first one to call and to check on people. That's one way you can love them. Another way is how Romans 13, chapter 13, 1-5, encourages us to obey authorities, because they've been placed by God. We may not agree with them in other arenas, and we may not even have the right attitude, the godly attitude we are supposed to have, and rightly so. It may happen. But I think obeying some of the restrictions and the things that they've put in place to make sure that the virus does not spread is one way of loving our next door neighbor. We're dealing with a virus that has more people vulnerable than others, right? The older people are than the younger people. And you obeying those restrictions may not be for your benefit, but for the next person, like God calls us to, You don't wear a mask because, it's hot and I can't breathe in it. We can be sacrificial and saying, I'm doing this because I want to be able to communicate love for the next person like Christ has called me to. I'm washing my hands like the shop requires me to, because I want to communicate that I'm a loving person for the next person. I'm thinking I don't want to infect myself, but I also don't want to infect the next person. So just obeying what's been put in place. The other way is by making sure you don't share any falsehood. Ephesians 4, verse 25 tells us that we need to be speaking truthfully and keep away from falsehood continually. Most of us are wilding on these social networks. Like, we are sharing articles we've not verified. We're sharing information that is false. We're sharing narratives that benefit us and are not helpful. They're causing panic. They're causing contempt in people's hearts. They're causing people to mistrust things that are being implemented worldwide. And that is not a loving thing to do. Not only because people deal with anxieties differently, but it's just not godly. In some ones it says we must not be scoffers, we must not be people who sit in places that say things that are just not accurate or true. And then in that chapter 4 of Ephesians, when you go to verse 29, it says, do not let the devil take a hold of you, like a foothold. So spreading falsehood and things that are not true is one way of letting the devil use you. And you and I, as Christians, should be above that. We should be those people who are first to verify information. Make sure that it's accurate before we send it, before we cause alarm and panic. Another way is we can be thoughtful. We can be generous. We can give. And it's a time where we want to hoard our resources and make sure that we're safe and we have money and we're able to, because we don't know what's going to happen. The economy could crash and you need your savings, But I believe that we can be loving and thoughtful. We can send a gift card. You can do shopping for an older lady, and go drop it off for them. And be like, hey, how can I help you? I don't think you should be traveling as much. I'll be going to the grocery store. What can I get for you? We can even give people money, because we know people around us that are struggling. You've had to make decisions that are like, you know what? We're not going to do this now because these other people's lives matter. And I would rather give this particular amount of money to this person, so that in this season, I would be God's hands and feet in loving them and serving them. So there's so many ways that we can love our neighbor and just honor God through this pandemic. And that's just my encouragement to you and I, that we would be intentional, we would be forthcoming, and we would just believe that God would take care of us through this all, and that we can love others because God loved us first, right? Like in 1 John it says, we love because he loved us first. And our love for others is a mark of his work in our lives. If we're able to love others even in our hard times, what a testament of our faith. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know if there are other ways you think we can love others. Grace and peace.